Yo, Todd here, Sunny Valley Customs. Welcome back if you're back. Welcome if you're not. We're moving on to part 2 on the 85 Buick LeSabre Estate Wagon air ride system. We got the front done last week. We're moving on to the rear. It is pouring outside. I just brought this in here. So not only do we get to roll around on the ground, but we also get to roll around on the wet ground. And believe it or not, the broken front windshield leaks. My ass is soaking wet. That's how I figured that out. So I got some parts that I ordered last week. I can give you a little peek at those. It's nothing much, but we're just going to get right to work on this thing. To start, I got two 50-foot spools of 3/8 airline. Ordered this on Amazon. Cheap crap. And I say cheap crap because the stuff that came in the air slam kit was better. It's actually a Teflon tubing where this stuff's not. I believe this is honestly for like semi or heavy truck air brake systems, but it'll work for what we need it to do. Next, I got my wiring kit. This is a single compressor kit. Comes with small gauge wiring for just your on-off to your relays. Comes with fuses, a bigger fuse block, smaller fuse block, and then some of these piggyback things for your standard fuse holder in your car. You pull a fuse out, put this piggyback thing in there, so it gives you another circuit, add a circuit I think they're called actually. So that, some more smaller gauge, and then some larger gauge wiring, which is 8 gauge. It's not that big, but it's big enough to run one single compressor with a relay, and it's a see-through relay too. Remember those like computers and PlayStation controllers and crap you could get that were see-through? That's what we got going on here. And then, last but not least, the rear airbag buckets came. Very, very simple. This one is literally just a 2.5-inch piece of pipe that's taller, whatever, with one hole in the bottom. This would be the upper. That is going to get the all thread that it came with. A couple pieces of all thread, 3/8 bolts. Pretty much the same thing that was in the front, except for a little shorter or taller. So that's what we got. So I'm going to get this thing jacked up. We're going to have to pull the shocks off to get the rear end to drop far enough to pull the springs out. And then we'll just go from there. Got it all jacked up, sitting on jack stands. This is just a standard GM style 4-link suspension. You got an upper link bar on each side of the pumpkin, and then a lower link bar on each side of the axle. Pretty standard. You find these in Chevelles, and I don't know if Camaros had this or not, but whatever. A lot of GM cars had this style suspension. In order to get these springs out, we got to pull the shock off. Now, if I was reusing these shocks, I would just pull it off here and it would drop down. But I don't want to reuse these shocks because A, they're old, and B, once this is fully bagged out, I don't know if they're going to be short enough, more or less. So I was trying to remove them. There's 2 bolts way up in the top here. This one I broke off, the other one I can't get to. So my thought is if I just take it apart here, we can drop this down, we can pull these springs out, which there's nothing holding this in right now except for the shock. And then maybe I can twist the shock to get to the other bolt up there. That's my plan. So I already got the other side unbolted. So we just got to take this one off. Now I do have a jack stand under here holding my Medusa lights. So once we take this off, this should allow us to lower the jack down and these springs should come right out. So let's do that. All right, let's see. Well, that is tight. Gonna need the big dog. All right, clock that to this bad boy. Look at that. Oh no. Oh great. That's just what you want to do. Oh, what the f... I don't want to take this nut all the way off because I'm going to have to beat that stud out, I think anyways, unless it's loose. Spinning on me. Damn it. Vice grip now. I guess they're... Did it just break? Ah, just twisted it off. Nice. Piece of shit. Okay, well, now we can finally drop the rear end and get those springs out. I could probably just do it right here. What's holding it? There's one. Roll over into the other side. Well, we got the springs out. That's actually as far as I'm going to go tonight. I got to figure out how to get those shocks out of there tomorrow. I also need to think about one other thing, but we'll go after that tomorrow. So I'm going to bed. Good night. Yo, good afternoon. I've been out here for a little bit. I did get the rear shocks out. It actually wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be because I could actually grab the shock and just move it and get a ratchet up there, and the bolts ended up breaking off, which is fine. Now what I also did was I jacked the rear end all the way up until the first thing that could hit. Turns out that is the pinion, and there's a little bump stop there. I could maybe trim that a little bit to get a little more, or get it a little lower. It's probably not going to get much lower, sneak peek, than this, without going crazy and cutting a whole bunch of shit out and going wild, which I'm not going to do. But we need to do a little bit of work, so let me show you what we got going on. So last night, before I went inside, I did test fit our bag buckets, and we're going to have to modify the upper one a little bit. So when the spring sits in the car, on the top and the bottom, there's an extended piece of steel that goes inside the middle of the spring to more or less center it and hold it center. The lower bucket is designed that way. Has a flat piece of round steel with a hole in it so that when you put this in, it sits inside like that. We need to do that to the upper bucket. Also, with the lower bucket installed, from the top of this to where the upper bucket surface would sit in the car was 5.5 inches. Sorry, my camera shut off. That was 5.5 inches. Currently sitting here on the table, if I set this bucket down and I set this completely aired out bag on it, I got 6.5 inches. So we need to go an inch shorter in order to get at least what we got here. And I'd like that. So also I cannot cut more than an inch off of the height of this bucket because of the way that I have my air line in here. I need to be obviously above that. So the plan today is going to be take an inch off of this and make this portion and weld it to the top of this portion. So I've already traced the outside diameter of this on a piece of steel, and then I found the center. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hog, or hole saw more or less, a 2.5 inch hole in both of these circles, and then we're going to take the old plasma and burn these out. And then I wish I had a piece of 1 inch tape that I could just stick on here and just follow this around with a cutoff wheel or whatever. Fortunately, I don't think I have 1 inch wide tape. But that's the plan today. I don't know if I'm going to get much more done than that. So today's probably just going to be a time-lapse day because I want to just get this done. And I don't want to explain every itty-bitty tiny thing that I'm doing. I'm going to cut a hole in here. I'm going to plasma this out. Cut an inch off of this. Weld this piece onto this piece. Bada bing, bada boom. Done deal. Not that hard. So, I'm going to get to work. Yo, good morning. It's actually probably the afternoon. I haven't worked on this for a couple days because I had a wedding yesterday on a Friday at 3:30. That's a new one for me, but whatever. It was a beautiful day. Everything went great. Congrats to them. Yeah, I may be a little slower today as a result of, the wedding yesterday. I must have had a little miscalculation, If I drink this much, I can have this many an hour with my body weight at this, with the atmospheric pressure at that. Somewheres in there I miscalculated, okay? So, it's going to be a little slower. Regardless, the show must go on. So, I left off with building, well, we cut these buckets down. I built this top plate, and I smashed a hole in here for my airline. Turns out I am not good at all with a plasma cutter. Couldn't cut a straight line to save my life. I also did not realize that this nut in here is not centered, which actually is a good thing, because what I did not think about is where my air fitting is. So I built this so that it was high enough to clear the top of this fitting, but what I didn't realize is that the piece that comes through also comes through, that much. So it just barely clears this fitting when all this is together. So what I had to do after I smashed this hole in here, centered, I ended up having to cut out more of this. So that's, because the nut's not centered, whatever. But it all works, so that's good. So I've already put together one complete assembled unit. We're going to assemble this unit, and then we got to do one thing before we can smash these in. But let's just get this one assembled and keep moving forward. So just like the front bags that I did, I put a 90-degree fitting on here. I cut a hole in the center. So actually this will be kind of nice because the fitting will be literally right there. So if I ever need to replace this line or whatever, I won't have to drop the whole bags out. I should be able to kind of poke them out, and poke a wrench through here to push in on this retainer, I guess you'd call it, and pull the line out. Anyway, this kit again came with 6 bolts, so there should be 2 bolts in the top, 1 in the bottom. I'm putting 2 bolts in the top, 2 bolts in the bottom, so last time when I did the front bags, I went and bought more hardware. Whatever. I am going to Loctite these in here and tighten them all down. And I'm just going to put this cup or bag mount, whatever, centered with the bag. Again, these are slotted, so you can actually, offset your bag a little bit if you need to. And I might on the bottom. For now, I'm just going to put them on center, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay. bottom. Now this is a little trickier. There's 3 holes in here. Like I said, the kit wants you to put just one in the center. I'm going to put 2. But because this ring is here, you got to kind of get your fingers in here to get these started. But it can be done because I did it already. Again, Loctite them. Well, that took entirely too long. And as I was doing this, my GoPro all of a sudden said, repairing file. So hopefully I didn't just lose all my footage. I would be pretty upset. But this is all together. I got a piece of 7/16 all thread that the kit comes with. According to the kit instructions, you're supposed to drill a hole in the frame and through the body of the car to get a socket on. That's not how these are going to mount. There's actually a separate plate that has about yay much, probably an inch or 2 above it. So I stuck this bucket up in there. I measured 3.5 inches until it hits the body of the car. So that's what I cut these at. Now before we can just go throw these in the car, what we actually need to do is make a washer essentially, because the pocket that sits down into here, the hole is about yay big. So we're going to need to create some sort of washer to sandwich this all together, and I'll put a picture in there, but whatever. So that's what we're going to do now. I measured the diameter of that cup thing. It's 3 fingers wide. So we need to make a washer about 3 fingers wide and then drill a 7/16 hole in it for this all thread. So that's what I'm going to whip up now. I'm probably just going to plasma a piece out of the scrap metal that I had. So once I get that done, we can throw all this stuff in there. Feeling kind of crappy. So yeah, and it's hot and muggy. I'm going to get that knocked out. Alright, got my washers all done. Look pretty decent. They don't need to be anything fancy, nothing special. I did clean them up just a little bit with the grinder. However, this is what they look like when you have a bad tip. Yeah, terrible. Probably should have swapped the tip out on my plasma cutter before I even started this whole thing. But it is what it is. We're at where we're at. So we're ready to throw these bags in here, finally. Let's do it. Okay, I apologize. There is no good place for me to put the camera and to lay under here and everything else. But the upper bucket will sit around this washer that I made. That's going to go up on top of that plate. So that way I have something to put a nut on. So now we should be able to slide this up in here. There's not a lot of room. Okay, I got my hose on already. I did put like a foot of that rubber line on here because I don't really know where I'm going to go with this quite yet. So now I got to try to get my stuff up here. Whoops, that went on there. I'm going to try to get that washer on that all thread. There it went. Now I need to try to get a lock nut and a nut on here. Not a lot of room. Come on. There's rust just falling in my eyes. Okay, that's on. Grab my nut. Doing this all blind. Oh. I can't grab this nut. Come on, get there. Start. Okay, got my nut started. Spin that all the way down. Now, okay, so that's in there. That should be pretty good. So, get a wrench on that, tighten that nut down. Should be good to go. Okay, that is tight now. So we'll have to do the other side, and then we can bring the axle up. Hopefully this all line up half decent. We should be good to go. Okay, so that's what that looks like all installed. Not bad. I may have to take these bolts out of here and just put one in the middle so I can slide this. Depends on how this is going to look when it comes down on the axle here. But we'll worry about that when that time comes. I'm going to knock out the other side, and then we can put this thing on the ground. Alright, we'll get the rear end jacked up, and then get the bottom of those bags in there. Go a little more than I have to. That way these sit in here. Wow, that does not look like that's going to sit in there very well. That's not good. That doesn't look good. This needs to go way over, unless I put some pressure in these bags. Okay, I got the buckets on the axle. It's kind of a pain. I ended up having to loosen these two bolts up on this bottom bucket and push the bag ahead. The bag is actually more forward on the top than it is on the bottom. So that's all together. I'm gonna compress this now, jack the rear end all the way up as far as it can go, make sure I got clearance. I need to measure for my bottom shock when it's all the way compressed. That way I make sure I get a short enough shock so that we're not sitting on the shocks. So let's go ahead and do that quick. Ugh. How's that looking? We're getting tight right now. Looks damn good. Looks damn good. I did trim that bump stop for the pinion. I took about 1 inch out of it, so we should get a little more out of it. Okay, let's see if we can go up some more yet. Well, my jack is all the way up, so I can't jack this axle up any further. But I think we might even be able to get a little more out of it once we get it on the ground. But awesome. All right. I'm going to get this down on the ground, and we're going to see how low it'll go. Looks good. Oh, I need to measure that shock. Damn it, I forgot again already. Well, it is time. I did go ahead and run to the auto parts store, and I put rear shocks on this thing. So it's got brand new rear shocks. The original shocks compressed to 12 inches. I needed 14.5. So that's great. Extended, it's like 19 or something fully, but we'll never reach that. So it's time to drop this thing. I think I want to drop the front first, just because we already know what that looks like. That's cool. Now we're going to slam this rear. I have not done this. Here we go. Well, maybe not. Here we go. Nope. Here we go. Nope. Gosh, damn it. Here we go. Wow, that is a lot lower already than I expected it to be. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty damn good. Sweet. Plenty of room around the tire yet. I would assume that we're rubbing. Oh my God, the exhaust. Holy crap. The exhaust is about 1 inch off the ground. I'll get you in there and show you that. There's my exhaust. Barely clears. That's awesome. That's awesome. I like that a lot. Wait until we get some different wheels. But I don't know what I want for wheels. I'm thinking Steelies. I was kind of thinking about going with something like Grand National. But I don't know. This looks pretty damn cool. That looks pretty damn good. Sweet. Sweet, sweet. Well, we've seen it all laid out. Now, we got to see it how we're actually going to drive it. Yeah. 80 in the front, 0 in the rear. That's the way it goes. Now that's what I'm talking about. That's probably how we're going to be driving it. Got that Cali lean. Alright, get the back aired up. There we go, aired back up. 50 pounds in the rear, 80 in the front. That'll be half decent ride height. Nice. Well, there she is, all laid out. I did not measure the rear before putting the bags in, so I have no idea how much drop we actually got out of it, but I do really like how it looks. It's lower than I expected it to be, and it looks damn good. We still got to do the air management system. We'll do that on the next video. That is going to be tedious. It's going to be a lot of rolling around on the ground because we got to run the lines. I actually need to pull these lines out and put fresh lines in, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So that's what it is. If you like this content, if you're coming back and watching these videos, please subscribe, and catch you on the next one.